Welcome to Melt University's 2020 summer program. This year, our virtual intern program will help you build your brand, inform you on a variety of career paths, and introduce you to top executives in sports and marketing. Here's your host, President and CEO of Melt, one of the largest independent sports and event marketing agencies in the country, Vince Thompson.
Welcome, students. Summer Virtual Melt University 2020. The podcast rolls on, the lunch and learns roll on, having a great summer. I can't believe that we're moving into our third week. I mean, it's really been an amazing start. And to all of you students who are listening in, dialing in, tuning in, the podcast, the lunch and learn, reaching out to some of the greatest marketing and live event and sporting event and brand marketers in the country. We've got a special treat for you today.
Right.
Not only is he one of my dearest friends, and we've shared many great times together, personal times, professional times. We've been to Super Bowls together. You know, we've raised our kids together. But you guys are going to get a kick today. This is one of the country's preeminent brand marketers, Seth Freeman, was recently chief marketing officer of one of my favorite places, Buffalo Wild Wings, led a tremendous resurgence of that brand. We'll talk about, of jumping into the food service business, where the careers are in that business. But if you've seen any of the work with Wild Wings for the last couple of years, that is Seth's stamp, his trademark. We worked together previously with the InterContinental Hotel Group. Seth, we had Tia Cummings on the other day, and we talked about her path to coming out of chemical engineering into brand management. So we'll talk about your experience working on some fabled brands, Holiday Inn Express, Holiday Inn. We had some fun together. And then Seth and I first met at the Coca-Cola company. He had come out of the Russell Corporation. So he had just tremendous brand experience, Russell Athletic, Coca-Cola, IHG, Buffalo Wild Wings. But what you're going to also see out of him today is his values, how he translates his values into each job and professional opportunity that he has, and graduated from Howard University.
HU.
Tremendous, HU, go HU, tremendous university. I'm trying to get my daughter in law school there now. Got his MBA from Georgia State, as I said, who's who roster, corporate America, Russell Athletic, Coca-Cola, IHG, Wild Wings, very active in his community. He's going to talk about the importance of cause and community and involvement and helping others and giving back. Works with junior achievement. Did an amazing thing on LinkedIn. You need to go look him up on LinkedIn. He's very active on LinkedIn. A great letter to the graduates of this year's class, the Boys and Girls Club, navigating in a post-COVID world. But welcome, Seth Freeman, to Virtual Melt University. We're glad to have you today.
So glad to be here, man. What's happening? It's good to hear your voice. It's so fun to be here, man. And I appreciate the invite. I finally get an invite and a chance to crash the party, man. So it's all good.
I mean, to get on the Melt You podcast, I mean, you got to be in the Hall of Fame in so many different ways. But no, we got a lot of great kids, hundreds of kids across the country. But one thing, Seth, that we are talking to our kids about a lot, and we'll get into post-COVID in just in a little bit, but the passion to pursue your life's work, your career.
Yeah.
Talk about how important that passion is, and how early in your college career, or if you did, or when you did, identify a passion for brand marketing and those types of things. Talk about how important, because we say pursue your passion with zeal, and you will always be successful.
Yeah, I dig that, man. I'm a big believer in that, man. It is one of the most important things. I mean, listen, you gotta put your work in, you gotta put your time in, and if you're gonna do that, you want to do that around things that you enjoy and that you love. And so Your question to me is when did I know? Like, I can remember years ago. You probably appreciate this, Vinny, because we go back. But like years
Hmm.
ago, man, when I was a kid, I was always that kid in the neighborhood who had the lemonade stand and was just
Hmm.
trying to hustle around the neighborhood to do things to make money. And I knew that I wanted to be in business. Like it was got like I knew, when I was young, clearly I wanted to play football and basketball and be the athlete,
Sure.
all that kind of stuff. But I knew I knew that I wasn't good enough really to do those things. And so
Hmm.
what I really enjoyed was business. And when I was in high school, just coming out of high school, a buddy of mine and I, a big brand, and it's not necessarily considered a brand, but a big thing that had an impact on my life was Showtime at the Apollo. I
Hmm.
don't know if you remember that show, but way back
Love
then,
that show.
Showtime at the Apollo. And so there was always these big talent shows and things like that in our area. And so we decided to create Showtime at the Palace Theater in Canton, Ohio. And we were young guys that pulled this thing together. And it was this big theater that we were able to rent out and started running a talent show. And then started running, started promoting clubs in the area. And so always I had a big interest in business. I always loved being able to bring people together. That was sort of my passion, what I love to do. And so I knew right from a young age that I wanted to get into business. I learned about marketing. It just became sort of a natural thing.
Hmm.
And so started to do that. I went to school and I had, some of the most powerful and impactful people in my life just sort of start to really feed me and really just begin to feed that passion and directed me towards internships and things of that sort. And so ultimately led to me getting into a very long marketing career, which I have loved. I've been blessed by.
Hmm.
But it all started, way back when selling lemonade back in Ohio in the Horseshoe, which was my neighborhood's name. So I've always known it, man, and I'm a big proponent of you following your passion in the right way.
So you get. By the way, I don't even think I knew that the. I love the Showtime at the Apollo. I'm not even sure I knew that you had been in the promotion and the booking and the talent business. That's even more impressive. I should have known.
Yeah,
But so you get to Howard, and Seth, we tell our students, we tell our kids that the campus is the ultimate professional laboratory right now. They're surrounded with as much uh, apprentice and mentoring and training and on the job training and networking and relationship building on a college campus. We talk about the relationships that you got to build, the mentors, how they open those doors, following up on those relationships. Tell kids who are at college now, Howard, Auburn, Georgia, KSU, wherever they are, tell them how to begin viewing the world when they're on a college campus. It's fine to have fun and be in your fraternity, sorority, and throw the frisbee on a pretty spring day, but while they're in this is the ultimate lab or incubator. Would you agree with that?
absolutely, man. I mean, like, listen, I mean, the beautiful thing about college is, everything you just described, which I miss immensely. And
Mm-hmm.
I had an awesome time with it at Howard. But I'll tell you, just the opportunity for exchange and dialogue and being able to get with folks who. You figure folks at college, they're trying to get it. Everyone there came for a reason, and they were either funded, their folks paid for it, or they're working hard to pay for it
Mm-hmm.
themselves. And no one wants to be that guy or gal who gets left behind, right? And so you like for me, uh,
Mm-hmm.
I admittedly I wasn't the best in school coming out. Like when I was in high school, I kind of did just enough to get by, just as long as I was on the basketball.
I'm right there with you.
And I was very very lucky, very very fortunate to get into Howard. And so once I got in, that's when the light bulb sort of clicked because I met some of some of the brightest minds that I had ever engaged with, and it
Oh
was
yeah.
such a diversity of thought and such a push to do more because we were expected to like the when you talk about mentors and things like that. When I went to Howard, it was very very much about sort of cultivating the minds of these youth, which really all school was about. But there was this nurturing environment at Howard in particular. It was an HBCU, and it was very
Hmm.
much focused on, hey, you guys are coming to school and you are the talented 10th. Like you have to be able to, one, you've got to do well, but then two, you need to make sure that everything you're thinking about is going back and figuring out how you can impact your community later on. Because we're not just raising you for you. You are going to be the vehicle that other folks get blessed by. And so it was always instilled with us. And I had a guy who was our guidance counselor at the time named Mr. Gray. And I tell this story very affectionately because he had probably the single most biggest impact on my life, particularly from a college perspective. My dad, I was fortunate to have my dad, who was a man in my life, who always did a great job raising me. When I got to Howard,
I love Pops. I don't
yeah,
forget. I love
yeah,
Pops.
yeah, I got a little pops. But Mr. Gray, man, he when I got there, his whole thing was you got to get your groceries. And so it was like, what, you get your groceries? What is that? He was like, man, if you come to Howard and you don't walk away with an internship or a job or an entrepreneurial opportunity, then you've just wasted your time. It's as if you went into a grocery store, walked into the grocery store, grabbed the cart, walked through all the aisles, put stuff in your cart, got to the grocery line, paid for your groceries, and then just left the cart there.
Right. I love that.
Like how ridiculous would that be? He's like, you make sure you get your groceries because you've already paid for them. You know what I mean? The goods are here, so make sure that when you leave with your groceries. So it was, I really knew nothing about internships until I got there, and he impressed that upon us, and I was fortunate to have internships each summer. That I was at Howard, and it set me up in a really big way. So I look back with great fondness. But to your point, Vinny, it was all about, seeing bigger than, throwing frisbees on the yard and stuff like that. Although I loved it, and stepping on the yard and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
But at the end of the day, it was about making sure that you could create impact. And so that's what I got the most out of.
Yeah. I think that I love that you got to get your groceries. I'm going to use that one. I mean, that's a wonderful one. So coming out of Howard, um, did you immediately come to Atlanta? Well,
Yeah,
I don't
man.
recall
Yeah,
what. So what was the impetus driving you to Atlanta? Was it a
yeah,
place you wanted to be?
yeah, man. So I'll tell you, so coming out of school, I'm gonna sidebar here for a second. All right.
Yeah.
So I came down. There was this thing. Your kid's not gonna know what it is, and I probably shouldn't be telling them this, but there was this thing called Freaknik back in the day in Atlanta.
Right.
And it
Right.
was awesome. It was like this experience of heaven back in the day as college
Oh
students.
yeah.
It was like just the best thing ever,
Oh
and it
yeah.
happened here in Atlanta. So I came down with some buddies of mine, and so
Was this after you had graduated?
no, no, no. This was while I was in school, and so
Okay.
like, I've got to get back to Atlanta someday. And so I got in. I was fortunate enough to get in. Like I said, it was sort of steeped in the fact that I had these internships. And so coming out, I had a few different offers. I was very fortunate. It wasn't because of how smart I was, but only because of the fact that I had been set up pretty well with these
Hmm.
internships and things like that. So I went into a leadership development program with GE Capital at the time, who was really known for leadership and development.
Oh yeah.
And so they had this program where every 6 months you could rotate to a new city. And my first city coming out of college was in Atlanta. So I came down to Atlanta. So I was like, I wanted to get to Atlanta. I got impacted by Freaknik. I always loved it, and so had the opportunity to come back. And a lot of my friends were here. And it was just a great opportunity. And so I spent 6 months here, did rotations. Let's see where else. I actually did a rotation back in Ohio, did one in Connecticut, did one in Charlotte, and then was fortunate enough to come back here. I matriculated through the program and landed in Atlanta, and have been here ever since, and went into a management role and continued through my career. So I started at GE Capital in private label finance, in this leadership program that gave me the opportunity to come to Atlanta. And then, then I went into, then I knew I wanted to get into CPG, went into Russell, then left there, got at Coke, where I met the great man, Vince.
Yeah. The mayor. The mayor. You met the
The
mayor.
mayor. That's where I met the mayor, and our friendship and business relationship flourished. And went from Coke to, like as you said, IHG, where I led the Holiday Express brand, and then on to Buffalo Wild Wings. And so it's been a great career. But to your point, started in Atlanta, and really just steeped in, Atlanta just kind of being just a great place for folks to come together. So I've had a blast.
Well, Atlanta is a magnet, is a beacon for a lot of young people.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about two or three things in the post-COVID world. But one thing, Seth, is that in a post-COVID world, particularly in marketing services and brand management and all that, there are many people that are out of work right now.
Yep.
And so, what I'm trying to teach our students and teach our kids is that experienced people, they're going to be now vying for entry-level jobs with experienced people who are out of work, who are willing to take a lesser role and a lesser salary to get back in the workforce, to get back in the marketplace. And so one of the things that we're talking about in my book is like building brand you. And
Yeah.
so before we get kind of unpack your career a little bit more, because I mean it's, it's hugely successful, and a lot more coming up. But and you are and as I am, a huge proponent of LinkedIn.
Yeah.
A huge proponent of it's the greatest networking tool and greatest business and professional and networking platform ever. But if somebody's trying to get your attention,
Yep.
if somebody is trying to stand out through LinkedIn, what give us some inside baseball. Give us some tricks of the trade that that you see when kids have always reached out, to you, because I tell these kids too, they forget that Seth and Vince were once in their shoes.
Yeah.
And so we have a soft spot,
Yeah.
but every 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 interaction is a job audition. You're showing us how you're going to be as a potential employee, as a potential hire, huge investments of time and money. But what stands out for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a good question, and I love the question because, the thing that sort of puts, I think, folks that folks need to understand, just getting right. I think the thing that folks need to understand is, like you said, I mean, you've got to be able to break through. Like the model that I use is kind of like sort of three things, and I really use it from a marketing perspective, but I think it works personally as well. It's about breakthrough, it's about differentiate, it's about persuade, right? And so if you think about it, so I'm gonna go old school a little bit here, and hopefully I can say this in the right vein. When I was coming up, and I used to think about, trying to, if I was at the club or if I was anywhere else, I knew that I needed to break through in a way for girls to want to dance with me, right?
Yeah.
If
Oh
I
yeah.
if I'm at the dance, I need to be able to do something that is going to get her attention.
Mm-hmm.
And so I needed to do something, not something ridiculous, but just something
Right.
where I could stand out, right? Like something that is going to allow disruption in a positive way. And so once I had that attention, then I needed to differentiate myself from everyone else, right? So breaking through, getting attention is one thing, but then being able to distinguish yourself is another thing. And that is
Mm-hmm.
going to be steeped in your ability to know who you are, right? And know the things that you bring to the table. And don't be afraid of that. Like right now, you have an opportunity to really craft your story and your narrative. And then the last thing that I'd say is what I call persuade. Then you can begin to say, once you know who you are and you can differentiate yourself, then you can persuade them into, and persuade sounds like a bad word, but it's not. Like
Right.
persuade them in a way that gets the most out of the conversation for you and for them, right? Like, and so going back to your question of when folks come to me, it is about sort of breaking through in that vein. Like it is not just your standard, hey, Mr. Freeman, I saw, like, and one, hopefully you don't call me Mr. Freeman because then I'll feel old. Please don't do that.
Yep. 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 I get it.
But like some of the notes that I've gotten are, hey, listen, I saw your profile. I saw what you did on XYZ, and I loved it. And you know what? And I had a similar experience. I'm making it up, right? I had a similar experience, and here's why I want to talk to you is because I've done these things which allow me to stand out, and could we get 15 minutes of a coffee? Particularly in this post COVID world, I've had a bunch of virtual coffees with people, just where I would do a Zoom call or just hop onto the phone with them, where it is 15 minutes, right? It's not a long commitment, but just 15 minutes just to find out about someone, and to be able to plant a seed and say, hey, here's what I've done. Here's the sort of things that I'm looking to do. Tell me a little bit about yourself, and then let's have another conversation where it's not something that I need to be married to, but gives me enough of an interest to engage with that person for a short period of time, and then I can say, yeah, you know what, man, that was interesting. I want more, right? Like you don't want to overdo it right away, and so I think LinkedIn is a great tool to be able to,
Mm-hmm.
there's lots of great articles, lots of great content out there. I think if you can start trying to find the content that resonates most with you and that you firmly believe is going to resonate with somebody else, and you put it out there and say, hey, I thought this was a great article. You put it out there, then it becomes sort of associated with you. Right. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's just like any other social media platform where if you put out if you put a song out there, it's because you love that song and you can identify it and you want that song to sort of be identified with you. Same
Mm-hmm.
with great content. And I would say, let that be sort of the anchor that you sort of build from in your connections via LinkedIn.
Well, I just made some notes here, and and students at home or where you're listening to this, I love that term, positive disruption.
Yeah.
I love that term a lot. I love the know who you are, which translates to being authentic in who you are. It doesn't matter if I agree with who you are or Seth agrees with who you are. We would rather you show your authentic self than a facade, and because your true colors are going to come out anyway. I
Yeah.
think the third thing you talked about was crafting that narrative, and said the title of my book is building brand you,
Yeah.
YOU, and
Love
so crafting that narrative, and then also listeners, students, if Seth's going to take his time to have a 10 or 15-minute Zoom call with you or a cup of coffee, you need to know as much about Seth as anybody in the planet. And there's no reason now. All the tools and all the information. Back when I was at Auburn, they laugh at me because I had to go to the library and either get the Yellow Pages, the encyclopedia, or some resource guide to
Yeah.
get to Vince Thompson or Seth Freeman.
Yeah.
Now you possess all the tools, and so there's no excuses now. And by the way, what we're telling our students, Seth, is that every interaction or every encounter in any format, virtual door, is a potential job audition.
Yeah.
They're showing you how they would be as a potential teammate, employee, coworker. I mean, everything is in an audition, and it's just going to be even so much more now in a post-COVID world, because the competition, particularly entry level, is just going to be absolutely brutal. And you've made a highly successful career being a brand marketer, but being a brand marketer is somewhat of a misnomer or misleading term, right? I mean, I liken it to like you basically are the general manager, the CEO of your own company,
Yeah.
right? So if a student's going to go into brand management, they need to understand that definition might not be exactly what they think it is. Correct?
That's absolutely right. I mean, like I love the title of your book, Benny, because that is, it starts there. Like you can't manage someone else's brand effectively unless you're managing your own brand effectively, right? I mean, like
Touche,
you
touche.
have to be able to, to make an impact. Like I said, you've got to be able to break through in an authentic way. You've got to begin to sort of differentiate yourself relative to the competition. To your point, Vinny, there's tons of folks out there vying for a job, but I think it's so important to just take a step back and realize that brand you is everything, man. Like I go back to when I was to my mentor, Dr. Gray, who had the great quote of make sure you get your groceries. His whole thing back in our day, his whole thing was the companies aren't, they aren't just interviewing you, you're interviewing them too. Look at
Bingo.
look at
Bingo.
this as a merger. You are going to merge with Coca-Cola. They're not just asking you to come work for them. You're going to merge with. Look at it as a joint venture, right? Like, see the value that you bring right up front, so that when you guys come together, yes, you're looking for a job, you're looking for all these things, and sometimes you get so enamored by those things, and it's right, like you get so enamored, but know who you are. You have been blessed with great talent, great ability. You're in this program. You're listening to this podcast right now because
Mm-hmm.
you want more, right? Like this right now, this opportunity you have right now to hear from Vinny on these podcasts just opens you up to a great deal of access that others aren't getting. And so being able to craft that story, right? Like so now being able to take what you've heard today, not just from me or from anybody, right? Being able to take what you've heard and not just allow it to be, okay, so what are the actions I need? What am I being told to go do? No, no, no. It's not just about what are you being told to go do. It is what story are you crafting? What's the benefit that you can bring through the story that you're crafting? When I go into any job, I always try to think about what is the legacy I want to leave? Not like, so is, yes, I want to come in and do a great job. Everybody does. But when I leave here, which I know I'll leave at some point, when I leave
Sure.
here, what do I want people to say about me? Like, that's the thing that you want to think about right up front. Like, what do I want people to say about me? I want people to say that, he made a big impact. Like, he brought big ideas and he treated people the right way. Like
Mm-hmm.
those things are most important for me anywhere I go. I want to make sure I can bring something that was never there before, that they are going to, that it evokes an emotion that they never, like they will interact with me, and it's just my true self, because I was just taught this way, to make sure you treat people the way you want to be treated. And I'm getting off into it a little bit here, but I promise you do those things, you'll be okay, and it allows you the opportunity, to your point, Vinny, to be able to connect authentically and build brand you in an effective way.
Well, no, and you just hit on something really, really big. Is I love that. What story are you crafting? About how you communicate your life and your value system, leaving a legacy of 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 what making a difference wherever you go. But and speaking of making a difference, because if people are researching you and they know anything about you, what are the threads that will come out of researching Seth Freeman or Vince Thompson is that we, too much has been given, much is expected. We love to give back. We feel obligated to give back. And one thing, Seth, if I could talk to these kids early on, is like, not only is it showing effort and initiative that you're out giving back to causes and communities, or you're on the, you're a server at Buffalo Wild Wings. You're not a server at Buffalo Wild Wings. You're on the front line of consumer behavior and consumer interactions and all those types of things. But talk about the value early on of translating your core values into giving back, and how that also goes into that package of brand presentation if they're going to get Seth Freeman's attention.
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, that is, for me, that's probably the most important thing, is your willingness to give back. Like right now, as an intern, as folks who are going through college, you've got to, we've talked about separating yourself and things like that, and being able to distinguish yourself. But right now, clearly, it's you may or may not want to hear this, but you got to pay your dues right now, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
being able to do things in a way with excellence, be able to think about, again, coming into a job environment, and just be like I think sometimes folks get so caught up in, man, I want to be the CEO tomorrow, right?
Right, right.
I get that ambition. It's all good. But what are you doing right now in your role? Bloom where you are planted, right? Like just if you want to figure out how to get to the next
I,
level,
I,
the
I
best
love. Let me tell you, bloom where you're planted. I tell these kids that all the time.
yeah,
Mark Zuckerberg's a unicorn, but bloom where you're planted.
yeah,
Like God, that is such good advice. Explain
yeah,
that philosophy, because I
yeah.
try to.
Yeah, I mean, it is just do you right now. Just do the job you've been asked to do. Like sometimes we get distracted by everything else going on or folks doing other things. But listen, man, you can't get distracted by that. You've got to, like, if I
Spot
ask
on.
you to do something, just do that. Like, if you do that exceptionally well, I will remember that like nobody's business. It's going to be like Jane or Jeff or whoever. They came
Hmm.
in here and they killed it with what we asked them to do. Now I can ask them to do something else, and I believe they'll do it. But if you come in and you're like, you didn't hit the project that we asked you to hit because you were concerned about another project that you,
Right.
it's not going to reflect well on my desire to want to give you another project because you didn't hit what I asked you to hit. So
Hmm.
first and foremost, bloom where you're planted, hit the things we've asked you to hit right now, and it will open up doors, big doors for you later in the future. That's the first thing and first and foremost thing that you can do in terms of being able to get to that next level. Just kill it right now. Kill it. Figure out how you can do the absolute best job right there, right now, and everything else will fall into place.
Well, and I will tell you this, and students, I want you, listeners, I want you to write down that term, bloom where you're planted, because I will personally confess that I haven't always followed that advice
Yeah.
because I wanted to be the biggest, I wanted to be the best, I wanted to be the king of sports marketing and all of these things, but I had to really realize that, there's what Seth is describing is a process.
Yeah.
Like you've got to be planted, and the soil's got to be cultivated, and the fertilizer and the water and the sunlight and the trimming and the pruning and all that. And it's just like that in your jobs, particularly early on. Like I said, we all live in a world of instant gratification, but and then that was sort of me early on as a running a marketing firm. I'm like, well, okay, I'll do this one task, but there's 10 others I know I can do here. But I was like, no, 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 do this one really good, really well first, then do the second one, then do the third one, and then as said, your body of work starts becoming evident. But I want every journal or whatever it is you guys are keeping. I think one of the main takeaways today is bloom where you're planted. Do good works in the community. Seth does them a lot. I do them a lot. We all say goodwill is good business, but we're also doing it from the heart. Not only because it's the right thing, we feel obligated. You guys, this generation, not only are the most sophisticated consumer, but you're under the most pressure now. There's so much going on with COVID and what's going on in society. But right now, it's going to be a tremendous amount of opportunity out there as well. But once you get in there, you got to bloom where you're planting, because goodness knows, Seth's paid his dues. I paid my dues. Seth, they asked me what we do for a living. I say we're in the rejection business because we get told no a lot as well. We're just at a different level that we do that.
Yeah.
And they're going to encounter obstacles, and obviously life's not linear and everything. So talk about as we begin to wrap today, which is an amazing session. What are some of your go-to resources, publications, books, podcasts that you would recommend to our students that you're reading that influence and inspire you and inform you um, as they prepare for this next step in their job and their professional growth?
Yeah, man. So I appreciate that. Like I try to stay dialed into as much as I can. So offhand, probably nothing you guys aren't aware of. So I definitely will read Ad Age and Ad Week every single day to kind of find
Mm-hmm.
out what's happening in the industry. I listen to podcasts all of the time, and so I listen to things like CMO Moves, which is an Ad Week podcast. I listen to Fearless, which is a podcast by Charles Day, who is just great. It's all about sort of creativity and sort of just tapping into. He talks to a lot of creatives at agencies, and it just really sort of taps into how they think
Mm-hmm.
and how they continue to stay relevant. Another one that I listen to is The Hidden Brain, which is an NPR podcast. And I know probably sounds old and stodgy a bit for some of your listeners, maybe. TED Radio Hour, I listen to. One last marketing one is the CMO podcast by Jim Stingle. He's awesome. So I try to do those. And then, for me as well, I listen to Craig Groeschel. And Craig Groeschel is he is a pastor out in Oklahoma. So it's a leadership slash spiritual development podcast, and that's really sort of, as you said, my values are sort of steeped in spirituality and making sure I treat people the right way in leadership and things of that sort. And so that's a big podcast for me as well. But so, listen, the big thing is just read as much as you can, as often as you can. And right now, you guys have, you may or may not know this, but the benefits you guys have is the access that you have. There's so much information and just
Mm-hmm.
thinking. And, if I could leave you with anything else, it'd be this, like, bloom where you're planted is a big concept that you got to be able to grasp. But one of the big things I learned coming out of business school at Georgia State was one of my professors said this, and I read it somewhere else, and it just always stuck with me. And it was this. It was, everything you were taught in school. You guys are going to some of the best and brightest schools in the world, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you're going to learn a ton, and it's awesome. But if you don't learn anything else, the biggest thing is just to have a point of view, right? Like having a point of view is what sets you apart. And when I say that, meaning you're in a room and you're at the table as an intern and you're sitting. Let's say you're not at the table, you're on the outside of the table,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody turns and says to you, "What do you think?" Tell them what you think, and don't be afraid to tell them what you
Spot on. Spot on.
you know what I mean? Because right or wrong, like people would agree or disagree with you, but if you're able to outline a point of view and it's steeped and you can say, here's how I landed at that conclusion, right? And you can walk me through the process. I may not agree with you. I may think it's completely wrong, but I will remember that you very credibly built a case for yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
I may not agree with it, but I can't dispute it because it's steeped in something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus, I don't know, right? Or just being afraid. Like, don't be afraid to use your voice, man. You've been given a voice, you've been given an opportunity. Use that opportunity and don't let anyone tell you that you don't have something to provide. Like if you're there for a reason. There's a bigger reason why you're there. And so leverage
Mm-hmm.
your voice to have a point of view at all times and don't crush yourself by saying, I don't know. Even if you don't know, you really do. Like if you're passionate about it, and it goes back to Vinny's point right away, like if you're passionate about what you're doing, you're going to have a point of view, and don't be afraid to share it. And don't be afraid to use your voice for sure.
Well, I think that's amazing and invaluable advice because like I said, these kids are the most informed and sophisticated consumers ever in the history because of the access to technology and information, social media. I remember in my early days when I was their age, believe it or not, I may have been afraid to speak up and share my opinion as well informed as it was because I was the younger person in the room and all these older people seemed to be like great big experts. And one day I finally said, you know what, I think I can, in spite of my age, I think I can hold my own. And I think some of my ideas and opinions can influence this thought process or this conversation or creative meeting or whatever it is. And so as Seth says, be fearless. He gave you a lot of tremendous resources. Seth, as I say, read these industry resources, but don't read them just for the article. If you see a Seth Freeman quoted in that article, begin following Seth on LinkedIn, begin reaching out to him on LinkedIn, make an informed outreach on LinkedIn. Hey, I love what you did with Wild Wings. I love that spot. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Make an informed outreach and have, amazing point of view. But so we could go, on for hours here. This has been, amazing. You never let me down, Seth. And, students and listeners, I want you to follow, like I said, Seth on LinkedIn. If you haven't read one of the most amazing, letters or emails I've ever read on LinkedIn and what he wrote to the graduates of 2020 and, you're going through all this weird COVID stuff and what he wrote to the Boys and Girls Club. It's an organization near and dear to my heart. If you want a values-based, not only a brilliant marketer, one of the best brand marketers in the country, but one of the best value-based brand marketers in the country. You need to follow Seth because he and I are going to a lot of places together, and wherever he goes, it's not an accident that he works some of the biggest and best, and most vaunted brands, in the country. And like I said, I know he's got this sweet touch and great touch. He will respond. He'll give you advice as well. So Seth Freeman, former CMO Wild Wings, great alumni Howard University, best brands in the world, Coca-Cola Company, InterContinental Hotel Group, great family man, great volunteer with JA of Georgia, youth and mentoring, basketball, Powder Springs Basketball Association.
None of that matters. The biggest thing is I am Vinny's friend. Like,
and by the way, the value of maintaining relationships,
like that
through thick and thin, is Seth and I are the poster children, and we might even go 6 months or a year without communicating. But when you got a friend in need, they reach out. You reach back out because Seth, I tell these kids that this world is moving. My old man used to say it moves 24/7, but now it's like 24 minutes and 7 seconds, not 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. It moves at the speed of light. And so you better treat folks well, because you never know when it's going to come back around on you. But what a joy it's been for you to join us today. And you have no idea how we appreciate it. And I know you're going to hear from hundreds of kids on LinkedIn. And we just appreciate so much your time and your words of wisdom today.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. Listen, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have been able to share. And it's always a pleasure and an honor to talk to you, man. And I appreciate Zach and Sam for helping on the podcast, for getting me all set up here.
Oh, no, they're the bombs. And again, the most sophisticated consumers there are. But summer virtual Melt You 2020 podcast. We're rolling on. Melt You. Shout out. Thank you, Seth.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
Thanks, Vince. Hope you enjoyed today's virtual class. We'll be back soon with another edition of Melt University 2020.